The IRS Commissioner, Charles Rettig, testified before the U.S. Senate Finance Committee. There was the expected coddling due to obvious fraternizing, but here are the key segments of testimony that were pertinent to taxpayers waiting on their refunds.
Obviously, there's a lot of other issues related to cash businesses, and frankly, going to the issue of modernization, back many years ago when I was working on IRS reform, I remember getting this call from a constituent saying I had to wait on the line for 45 minutes. I'm not gonna keep waiting on the line that long, and here we are again waiting on the line for 45 minutes, and therefore this individual chose not to file. It's caused a lot of complications, and some have received this CP 59 notice for failing to file a tax return, even though they filed it over a year ago. What do you plan to do to mitigate the impact on these taxpayers, and how does this delay impact the processing of the 2020 returns for these same individuals?
We have about 1.7 million returns still in process that were filed prior to January 1 of 2021. Those, for the most part, will be 2019 returns filed in 2020. We are current with respect to our mail. At one point, we had over 20 million pieces of unopened mail. We are current, and that standard is actually right around 1 million pieces of mail. We always have substantial mail. As far as processing returns, it's all hands on deck in our submission processing. We have mandatory overtime, split shifts, dual shifts, mandatory weekends, processing as quickly as we can, and we expect to get through this. You know, the term that we use, fortunately, unfortunately, is summer. That's kind of a lawyer answer. It is, because summer could be May or it could be September. I can just assure you that we are giving it our best.
My office, as the Commissioner knows, has heard from Pennsylvanians whose returns have been referred to the error resolution system, but have not received communication from the IRS as to why their return was flagged or how to correct their return. So I'd start with this question, Commissioner. Can you explain the steps that the IRS is taking now to ensure taxpayers understand why their returns are being flagged?
We've done a fairly, again, IRS speak, you know, maybe not in the private sector or other people, but for us, we believe we've done a pretty fair amount of outreach, and we continue to do so. In terms of the error resolution service, historically, it's been about a 3 to 5 day process. It's currently running about 10 to 14 days. We currently have an inventory of about 1 million, exceeding 1 million, but about 1 million matters there. Where we could, in other arenas, we've actually transshipped physical items and returns to other campuses. I think, as everybody knows, the error resolution system operates out of Kansas City. The top 5 issues of why returns are in there, just quickly, is return recovery rebate, matching EIP 1, EIP 2 against their RRC claim, EITC to people who elected for 2019 as opposed to 2020. The additional child care credit they claim on the return doesn't match the information that we have, EITC math errors, and the last one, that we received a premium tax credit. They received a premium tax credit, but they did not file the Form 8962. And for individuals who do their own returns, the software actually requests that. But those have been the most prevalent, and they're fairly consistent across the board as to what's pulling returns out. And error resolution service is a manual process. And we have put as many folks in there as we can, and we get it, and those need to be processed. And we're doing the best we can. That doesn't mean that we're doing well, but we are doing the best we can.
Well, Commissioner, thanks for your attention to that issue. I wanted to make reference to a report in March in the Washington Post. The Post reported that a caller was told by an IRS call center agent that over 7 million returns were sent into the error resolution system to, quote, buy time, unquote. Just ask you by way of follow-up, can you share how the number of returns being routed to error resolution this filing season compares to previous years? And also, second question is, what is the IRS plan to resolve this?
Well, first, let me address Washington. We don't do something to buy time. If somebody gave that comment, they didn't know what they were saying, and they shouldn't be working for the Internal Revenue Service. We're a service organization on behalf of the people in this country, and that's just outrageous. And nobody should say that. We do our best, and we have processes, and those processes are in place. In terms of error resolution, historically, we did not have issues with respect to individuals who could elect, say, in this year, 2019, as opposed to 2020 for their EITC. We did not have the matching with respect to EIP 1, 2, and the return recovery rebate. Those are the top 2 of the 5 most prevalent issues as to why things get into ERS, and it has certainly increased the volume. If you wanted a year-to-date volume, I don't have that present, but I certainly could get it to you. But we got hit with a couple of additional issues. We got hit with the pandemic. We got hit with staffing issues, and we've had difficulty hiring during this period of time. And we are hiring for anybody who might be watching and listening.
Could you provide any sort of timetable for when the IRS might fully clear out its mail backlog and help Montanans might be navigating through tough situations like this constituent from Billings?
Our mail is current. We have 1 million pieces of mail. We get about 1 million to 1.5 million pieces of mail per week, and we work through 1 million to 1.5 million pieces of mail per week. Obviously, we're a large operation in terms of that. So our mail is current. On the matters that you referenced, I would encourage if your staff reaches out to me or to my staff, and I think pretty much everybody on the committee has my cell phone. I've handed that out to members of the committee, and with the intent that you do so, and feel free to use it to me, and then also Deputy Commissioner Jeff Triviano, because items that seem unusually long, and certainly April seems unusually long with respect to the estate, we will have somebody look into that.
How many tax returns prior to January 1, 2021 are still being processed? Can you get us that number at some point for the record?
1.7 million.
All right, 1.7, thank you. And you had said, I believe, in your testimony before the House that you were going to try to get through this backlog by the summer. Are you still on track to do that?
We are.
I understand the challenges presented to the IRS, but I have to say I do have deep concerns regarding the delays that Hoosiers continue to see over a year into this crisis. An early and recurring complaint that I receive from constituents involves the backlogs from our regional offices, namely the IRS Processing Center in Kansas City. Even with the involvement of local taxpayer advocates, we still have constituents waiting on 2019 refunds, sometimes with no reason provided for the delay. Can you please explain the process that the IRS has adopted in order to process the backlog of tax returns, sir?
It's our submission processing element of what we refer to as Wage and Investment Operating Division. And as I indicated, we have all hands on deck. We're doing multiple shifts, mandatory overtime. We're doing weekends. Folks who were trained in that lane, who went on to other positions within the Internal Revenue Service, have been detailed back into that. So we have the maximum amount of folks dedicated to that. About 5 million returns that are in process are actually returns where we have asked for additional information, whether it's a form or certain information as in EITC space, verifying that children are qualifying children for EITCs. And so we've actually sent out requesting that information, and that ties into our mail side, because if those folks have actually responded in paper mail, in our mail side of the house, our mail backlog is about 1 million pieces of mail, which is actually current. It's not a backlog. We average 1 million to 1.5 million pieces of mail a week, and that's what we process. And process means we open it and we enter it into our system and we redirect it to where it needs to go. We are moving that as quickly as possible. I get it, and very sensitive to the fact of, you mentioned things like refunds and whatnot. And certainly, in addition to that, refunds for the most vulnerable taxpayers, the EITC, CTC folks out there. And I want to assure you, we are doing everything we can. There's a high degree of concern and dedication. And I get it that doing everything we can didn't get somebody their payment earlier, but we are doing everything we can in that space. We have used every resource possible to get us there.
Including addressing major bottlenecks. The Errors Department in Kansas City and the processing of unopened mail from over a year ago has been a challenge, but from what I'm hearing from you is you are diverting resources to attend to challenges like that. Is that accurate?
We are, and we transship physical mail among our 4 different campuses for processing, specifically out of Kansas City into Austin, Memphis, and Ogden. to handle that, and the IRS is now averaging about 10 to 14 days, whereas historically it was about 3 to 5 days to process.
I want to turn to the issue of tax returns. You have heard a lot about it from members of this committee. I sent you a letter in January urging the IRS to clear the backlog of unprocessed 2019 tax returns, and obviously I've been hearing from constituents, as all my colleagues have. You have discussed in your answer to Senator Portman and others the steps that the IRS is taking to address this backlog. But could you explain how or if IRS is working to mitigate the impact of unprocessed returns on affected taxpayers?
We're doing everything we can to process, which is not the impacts on them. It's actually processing to try to get to the there point sooner. And in terms of mitigation, there was an example given where we issued a CP59 notice saying you didn't file your return. That notice was a mistake. Absolutely should not have gone out. I think we issued about 278,000. We found out about that. We notified Congress. We corrected that. We issued corrected notices. So, we do have issues. Those are not mitigation. They're making it worse, right?
The commissioner testified for over 2.5 hours. We can talk about the 14 weeks to train the new 1,000 agents that have been approved, the fact that their processing system is outdated, and the fact that they are redirecting resources to handle their ongoing backlog issue. The biggest takeaway is that he urged the Senate Finance Committee to contact him or the Deputy Commissioner with any unusually long waits. Here's the list of Finance Committee members. This is the best way to get a resolution to your backlog refund. If you like information like this, please hit that like button, please subscribe, please hit that notification bell so that you can get future videos like this. As always, thanks for watching and get the money.